Are we ready to go?
We are ready to go.
All right, I'll call our agenda setting meeting of July 7th to order. And we're meeting here in the City Council chambers at City Hall. And let's see, we are not going to conduct business at this time, but we do a roll call or not? No.
We don't, no.
All right, so with that, we have let's see, several people ready for presentations. Our city administrator is on the line on Zoom. All right, so I guess unless there's other reasons, I'll turn it over to our librarian, Jen, to give her a monthly report.
So June flew by, I don't know if you guys noticed. The summer reading program will be wrapping up next Saturday, the 18th. We'll have a party. They've had lots of kids participate, so treats and prizes have been earned this summer, and we're excited to reward the children. We had 67 kids sign up, and we're hoping to get the reading logs turned in, enter for the prizes, and have a bigger party. 321 Art Studio will be here on Tuesdays through the end of the month. They provide painting classes for adults from 10 to 2. Every week is a new project, so you can come for one or sign up for all, and walk-ins are welcome for that. Today we hosted the Sustainable Safari. We welcomed furry animals into the library for patrons to learn about and pet. We had an escaped wallaby that we chased, but we caught it, and then I got to babysit it the whole time, so I am very happy. We had a total of 50 people attend, which is fabulous. We got a call from Mountain Iron this morning to warn us they had 250 people at their event, same event, so we were a little nervous, but we made it. On July 17th at 2 o'clock we'll have bugs in the library, but it's not a problem, it's a program. For the ALS kids stuff, they've provided us for the summer reading participants. However, anyone can attend. Nature Connect will be here to share the aquatic bugs of Minnesota. Arrowhead Library Systems Legacy Program will be providing acrylic art kits for patrons of all ages through the month of August, that's August. These are free for patrons, provided by a grant acquired by the 321 Art Studio. The University of Minnesota has again provided us with Bell Museum science kits. The kits contain items to encourage exploring and learning. These are free to patrons with one per household while supplies last. As we wind down the summer, we are working on more shifting projects in the library as we are aiming to provide more space for programming. And we're in the works of planning a big event for next fall, so stay tuned for details on that.
A lot of things happening as
Yes.
usual. Yeah, just out of curiosity, how did the kangaroo manage to try and escape?
Well, he was in his bag, and he just set the bag down. He thought he was sleeping, and then he just crawled out of his bag, lost his diaper. It was an adventure, but fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it added to the enjoyment of everybody present.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Never a dull moment.
No, that's good. All right, so let's see. I understand Dan's online. Any preliminary matter? I assume, Dan, you're going to go for a while here?
Boy, I hope not. We'll see what happens.
All right, well, maybe we could say 5 minutes.
Members of the council, my name is Dan Tidger. I'm a senior municipal advisor with Ellers and Associates. And I'm here to chat about the $3,215,000 general obligation improvement bonds. The council, I believe, has a copy of what we term the pre-sale report. That report generally outlines the preliminary terms and conditions of the bonds. We call it preliminary not because we're planning on changing anything between now and when the council would ultimately authorize the sale. We call it preliminary because we won't know the final numbers until we actually go to market and accept bids on the bonds. So preliminary just basically means we're before sale, and then final will be after sale when we actually accept bids from qualified financial institutions and underwriters. Because of the size of this bond, we are planning on doing what we call a full competitive sale, meaning that we will put together a preliminary official statement and we will release that to qualified financial institutions who can then bid on the bonds. The virtue of that process is that it really allows you to test a nationwide market of underwriters, and in doing so, secure what will ultimately be the lowest possible interest rate on that day in the marketplace. So you can think of it as an analog to when you do competitive bidding with a construction project. We're going through a similar process to get the city the best possible price on that particular day in the market for the debt. Ultimately, it will be a fixed rate tax exempt issue to finance the street improvements that are planned within the city. And at this point in time, it is proposed to be a 20-year bond, and a portion of that debt service will be supported by special assessments. And for the purposes of financing the debt assumes that the council would also impose special assessments over the 20-year period. So essentially linking the special assessments with the principal and interest payment. For anyone that opts to not prepay their special assessments, and right now in the bond, we're assuming 10% would prepay based on the city's historic experience with other projects. You would then impose those assessments over a 20-year period at 1% over what we call the true interest cost or the interest rate on the bonds. As mentioned, they're being issued under your general bonding authority and through the special assessment statute. And since you're planning on to assess more than 20% of the project costs attributable to the city will not have these bonds count against its statutory debt limit. Also, as part of the bonding process and through a competitive sale, we will be seeking a rating on the bonds. Right now, you are an A2 credit through Moody's Investor Service. The council may recall that I believe now, maybe a year, 18 months ago, the city actually went through a round of surveillance, and because of the financial management planning that the council has done to date and the strong financial position of the organization, you were actually upgraded 2 notches. That's to your benefit now because ultimately the credit rating on the bonds helps underwriters determine what interest rate they should attach to the financing that they would offer you. So really we're expecting a same or similar credit rating for this bond, and because of, I think, the homework the city has done to date, you'll get a slightly lower interest rate than you otherwise would have received just a couple of years ago. So right now, at this point in time, assuming the council were to move forward with the sale by adopting the resolution at your regular meeting after this agenda setting meeting, we would plan on meeting with the credit rating agency on July 21st to talk with them about the financing and the financial state of the city and get their credit rating. We also would do a due diligence call to review the official statement. So basically the staff and I would walk through the official statement kind of line by line just to make sure that everything reflects reality. And then right now we're planning on going to market on August 4th. So on that day, probably around 10 in the morning, the city would solicit bids from qualified underwriters, and we would then know what the bond structure would look like. And assuming it's a good sale, which we expect it to be, that evening at the council meeting, you would be then asked to award the bonds themselves on the terms and conditions that were bid earlier that day. And then a few weeks later, on August 20th, that's when we would actually close on the financing, meaning that's when the city would actually be wired the money from the underwriter, and it would be available for the city to make progress payments on the projects that are currently supported by the bond financing. So that's quite a bit of information. It is in greater detail in the pre-sale report that was provided to the council, but those really are the highlights in terms of the size of the bond, its structure, how it is we plan on supporting the debt service, and then ultimately the process from here on in through August 20th when you would actually receive the financing, assuming the council pulled the starting gun at the meeting right after this one. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have about the bond, its structure, or any assumptions that we have made as part of the preliminary financing plan.
I always have questions. Let's suppose more than 10% of the assessed properties elect to pay upfront. Is that something that just goes into like an escrow fund, or does it actually reduce the principal immediately as soon as we have those funds?
It's an excellent question, Mr. Mayor. In this situation, what would end up happening is you would basically deposit those monies in the city's debt service account that would be established for these bonds. So it wouldn't reduce the principal, but you could potentially then use those monies for project costs. and then if there are any monies left over, you would then use them to help service the debt on the bonds.
And then.
But since we're issuing before the assessments will be ultimately imposed, which is not unusual, we won't have the opportunity to reduce the par of the bond.
So that gets to the next question I had was, when do we incur an obligation to start paying either debt service or principal payments on the bond? And how does that affect our kind of assessment plan?
So ultimately, we're making some assumptions in terms of what the assessments would look like. So one of the risk factors that's identified in the plan of finance and the pre-sale report is that the city would impose the special assessments as currently planned. If you were to not do that, then we would have to adjust the debt levy portion of the bonds in order to make the debt service payments. Right now, under the current bond structure, you would have an interest payment due on August 1st of 2027, so that's the first payment that you would make. And then on February 1st, 2028 is actually when you would make your first principal payment on the bonds and start retiring the debt officially. That date may seem a little far off, but that's generally because the city needs to impose the assessments and then start collecting on them, which you would collect in 2027. And you would also have to adopt the debt service levy, which you would then also collect in 2027 to make your principal payments beginning in 2028. So we like to make sure that the city has cash in hand in order to make any principal and interest payments.
Councilors, other questions or?
How does a prepayment affect, one, can they prepay, it looks like, and how would that affect the city's obligation to pay interest if they were able to prepay in advance?
So once the final assessments are imposed, typically there is a period of time where they can then prepay the assessments or pay the assessments in total to avoid being assessed at an interest rate, in this case over a 20-year period. Two things can happen. One, if they prepay, then, and it's greater than, if it's at or around the 10% that we were assuming, it doesn't really affect the plan of finance at all. If it's much more than the 10%, then we may have to adjust some of our assumptions moving forward about how the city would satisfy the debt service. Because one of the things that we're assuming is that there's a certain amount of assessments outstanding, and you're going to make a certain amount of interest on those assessments in order to make the debt service payments. If that happens, we simply just have to make some adjustments moving forward. The principal interest payments will essentially be locked in at that point in time, but the city still has some flexibility in how it would work through those prepaid assessments and how that would affect the debt service levy. There would just be some movement, and then we would also have to think about some of the arbitrage considerations related to the debt service fund and how any of those special assessments were managed over time. The other thing that can happen is the assessments are prepayable in full at any point in time during the life of the bonds. So that's also something that staff will have to monitor really over the next 20 years. It's most common that these assessments can get satisfied when a property is bought and sold, usually as a condition of sale. The new owner will want the assessments to go away, and so the city can receive a payment. Again, you just have to monitor the debt service fund to make sure that you have sufficient monies to cover any of the principal and interest payments. Now, in this situation, that's not as much of a concern because there are a number of properties that are involved in the assessments themselves, and you have coverage in two ways. One, state law requires you to levy 105% of the debt service, so there's a buffer that's built in for any type of those things. And then additionally, the city is imposing the assessments at 1% over the interest rate on the bond. So there's a little bit of a spiff or a float on top of the interest rate that the bonds will have. So between that additional 5% and the extra 1% on the special assessments, even in the event that someone were to prepay and affect some of that interest income, there are buffers built in or cushions to make sure that any of that change over time doesn't have as much of an undue impact on the city.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, just getting old and mind fog. The sources of funds for the repayment of this are from assessments partially, right? But are we also relying on a portion of, maybe Jeff could answer this, of general obligation? I mean, city regular tax revenues and other things, or how does that balance? I know it'll wait until we finish the assessments, but.
Yeah, and we'll budget for a debt service levy, which is just it's an additional line when the council does the tax levy every year. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. We also would have the option of using something like franchise fees or other fees or something like that to help pay this back. But that'll be as Dan said, the payment schedule will be set, but it'll be a year-to-year question for us on how we want to raise those funds, how we want to levy for that, if we want to use other funds to not have to put that directly on the tax levy. But it'll be clear in the budget every year where it's coming from.
And Mr. Mayor, to add to the city administrator's comments, right now, under the current plan of finance, we are assuming the assessments that the city would impose with that additional interest rate over the TIC would raise about, we'll call it about $89,000 a year. And then the balance of those payments would have to come from the debt service levy, which right now is about $170,000 per year. If you have the pre-sale report handy, the second to last page has a schedule that outlines the principal and interest payment, the 105% buffer that I mentioned, the amount of revenue for the assessments, and then ultimately the remaining amount that gets supported by the levy. But as Jeff pointed out, every year you will have to look at what are you getting for assessments, what other revenues do you have, and do you want to levy the full amount or potentially use other current revenues or even reserves to make your debt service payments.
Thank you. More questions, or?
So that looks like we've got an average levy of about $170,000, about $170,000 a year after the first interest payments start coming in. Is that what I'm seeing? Just to
Yes.
satisfy the bond? Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yeah, the average annual debt service, including principal and interest payments, is, give or take, depending on the year, a couple $1,000, about $170,000.
Other questions of Dan? If not, a good succinct presentation. That was nice to deal with a complex thing. I guess we've got to digest the handouts, though, I suppose. All right. If there is nothing further from Ehlers, Jeff, do you have any matters to bring forth, or should we turn to Josh? Or?
I do not, so I've been a little bit out of commission here, but I think Josh probably has most of the information folks are looking for. Important updates.
He always does. Yeah.
Other than Dan, when Dan comes, I don't know why you got, brushed over there. Yeah.
All right, so with that glorifying introduction, Josh, do you want to bring us up to date on your
Do you want to start with the big news, Mr. Mayor?
Well, yeah, I guess, sure. So during the course of the day, as most of you probably have learned, apparently Representative Stauber used his chits or something like that to ensure with his colleagues and apparently with the Democratic side that we're going to get a $6 million federal grant, no strings attached for the local community for the construction of the planned bridge. So we had said we weren't going to put local money into it, but this is even more generous. I think it was originally estimated at $5 million, so there's a little cushion here. In reflection of that afterwards, we can maybe take a photo with a little sign and have non-alcoholic
Now I get it.
non-alcoholic beverages over there.
Look at that.
Public control rate.
Well, I'm sure it took everybody in the Congress to get
The
through.
railroad bridge?
Yes.
Pardon? The railroad bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, the bridge
The
over
one-
the railroad.
not Pine Grove.
Correct, correct.
Oh.
That's an expensive
Well,
bridge in Pine
There's
Grove.
a heck of a bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, we're finding a whole new humorous subject. All right, so anyway, that's certainly, I didn't mean to steal the thunder, but I think
No.
it's,
I gave it to
I mean, we've been so fortunate as a community, and it's just like the frosting on the cake, kind of an amazing grant. I know there are a lot of citizens who don't think it's necessary, but the reality is that those who know these kind of things think it's an appropriate intersection and of some priority, so.
So now we'll have a 3-year construction.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So now Josh, update us.
Yes.
I mean, with this news comes a lot of questions, right? Schedule is the first one that comes to my mind. These are federal dollars. It takes a long time to get a federal project to construction. I have not talked to St. Louis County other than a couple text messages with Vic Lund that, is this legit? And he said yes. He was waiting for confirmation from the FHWA, that's why he had not shared it. Representative Stauber obviously felt comfortable and so shared it. I had seen him 10 minutes before that and I didn't hear any discussion of it. But,
Interesting.
It's great news. I would guess the earliest is probably 2029 at this point. Realistically, that's probably even being ambitious. 2030 is probably. So with federal money, you have to do an environmental document. That's at least a year-long process, probably closer to 18 months just to get through that slug. I mean, that puts us into probably 2028 alone right there. And so then there's usually design modifications that come out of that. And so 2030 is probably realistic, but I had zero discussion with the county. I don't remember exact estimates of the project and the details of it. I mean, I have probably more questions than anyone as we get into this, right? So, the other one, does this include all the way to 110? I mean, they were talking about if they get the money, they would want to do it all as one project, and so certainly we'll want to revisit that conversation.
They were looking at 2030 for that.
Yeah. Yep.
So it worked out probably just right, so.
So does that affect the existing project at all? They're still gonna mill and overlay from First to the tracks?
I would anticipate. I'm gonna push them to. It's no cost to us, and it needs it. So I would hate to go another 5 years waiting for that. So I mean that's kind of the life of the mill and overlay, anyways. And so it's kind of a win-win. They're getting the full use out of that expense, anyways.
So
yeah.
to Councilor Hess's point, does it do anything to either coordinate with or better ensure that the South Main roadway improvements will be made as we've all been assuming they will?
I mean, certainly we're gonna have to go through the whole process we just did with the municipal consent and all of that. I mean, so there'll be plenty of opportunity to voice our opinions and concerns. So I would like to see it as one project. I don't know how you split it at this point.
Is there any way by which the current contractors could just transfer on into that, or is it a totally separate?
No, totally separate because of the environmental document. So it's the cultural resources evaluation, the environmental impacts. You're building a bridge. What is that doing to the environment? All those, the red tape that comes with federal dollars. The endangered species comes into it. There's just so much that could go on for hours. It'll end up being a 2-inch thick document when it's all said and done. So.
Well, congratulations. You're for getting to prepare that.
Well, St. Louis County did most of the work. I actually had very little involvement. They deserve all the credit on this. Mr. Lund pulled it off. So it's good.
Well, we'll see how.
Josh, was that the first outfit that they went in? They put in 2 grants for 2, right?
I think it's the FRA money. I think. I don't think it's the other one wasn't brick. It was build. I think those just went in.
Okay.
And so the FRA went in like February, so I'm pretty sure it was the FRA, Federal Rail Authority dollars. So that'll be one of the questions I asked Mr. Lund as
Because
well.
I know they applied for 2 this time.
Yep. So it's good news. Yeah, these are very hard to get.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
These very competitive. So.
Almost afraid to brag about it.
Yes. Yes.
So, good. Everything else seems anticlimactic, but any other updates or?
Construction, obviously, they're moving right along. We definitely got the A team from Uland. They're putting a lot of pipe in every day. I mean, they're right in front of the gas station right now. So you know, the intersections take a little bit to get through, but once they're running down the middle of the block, they're 300-400 feet a day. So they do have to go back and they'll put the water services in to each of the curb stops for the houses. On the south side, the 200 and 300 block, we have to run new services all the way to the house. We've met with some of the property owners. We still have a few more meetings tomorrow. I think they're starting services not next week, but the week after. So they get that all hooked up. They're pressure testing the water main already up to 2nd Street. They'll get that live. One of the things we're coordinating is when that new water plant goes online, how's that gonna influence with water flow? That's all stuff we're thinking about and coordinating. Downtown, so the discussion was it was always gonna, after the 4th of July, they can start that. They don't have storm structures yet. So precast is behind statewide. Every project I have is 6 to 8 weeks out on precast concrete storm structures. And so they don't think they're gonna get those till end of this month, and so they probably won't start on Main Street until end of July, maybe even early August. So probably be some political pushback on that. Like you said, you were starting in July. It's strictly supply.
So what's that gonna do for school, because that's gonna put Main Street and rerouting all the buses and
It
school
always
traffic?
would've.
Yeah.
Okay.
It always would have, so I don't think it changes anything.
Okay.
It's probably additional communication, like, hey, this
When
is
is
still
this?
open. They probably have questions why it's still open. It's just communicating. No, it'll be down by a month before school, I think. So I don't think it changes anything.
But the actual roadway on Main is pretty uncomplicated.
Yeah,
I mean, just storm sewer
it's
and
just
that's
storm
it.
sewer. There's a new
Yeah.
run of storm sewer going in. They don't even got to pull stuff out, so it's gonna go quick, I think.
Yeah.
What's that?
You jinxed it.
Got it.
The
Oh.
school way, like the school roads?
4th Avenue.
Oh.
Yeah, like
The
that
third-
route to
Third
school?
Avenue.
3rd Street. I wasn't at the meeting last week. Is it next week they're planning to start that?
Yeah.
Um,
So,
Still on track. I mean, per the schedule, they're submitting that they'll be done by school, at least 3rd Street into the school. I have no doubt there'll be some tie-in work on 4th Avenue. Per contract, they don't have to go west of 3rd Street on 4th Avenue this year, so they're just gonna kind of tie it in for the year and then come back next summer and do 4th Avenue to the west.
Oh, okay.
And then.
But they're gonna
of
get
course,
that like curve.
They're gonna get the
in.
realignment done this year. Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Again, they're waiting for storm sewer materials. Everything's just delayed, so. But they're the A-team. I have
Yep.
the utmost confidence they're gonna get done this year what they need to get done. So.
Is that a legitimate delay if they can't get the infrastructure? We'll see how it plays
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
We'll have to ask our attorney that question, I suppose, yeah.
You're thinking of penalty revenues or what?
No, I just don't know how much of a delay it's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, where you land is like temp paving and stuff like that. Who eats that cost? It's that type of stuff. You because it's a 2-year project, you probably don't have the grounds to push LDs.
Yeah.
But there are softer costs that come with not getting everything done. Temp paving, temp concrete, stuff that's gonna get ripped out next year. Hopefully we don't have to go down that road. So they're pounding away. So I'm not gonna go out on a limb for them, but they're doing a good job. So.
Reassuring and good to
Yeah.
hear, yeah. So it doesn't always happen with contractors.
Last couple things I had, we had our final walkthrough on Canute. There'll be a final pay app coming through at the next council meeting to approve this will be the final payment to the contractor. Typically, we don't bring those through council. This is the final, so we always bring the final through. It's kind of our blessing as the city. We accept the project as constructed. We're closing this out. They'll furnish all their paperwork, warranty bonds, stuff like that. Same thing with the alley. We still have that one open. That'll be coming next council meeting as well. So.
Good. Let's see, we got about a minute left. Jeff, anything to add or? Nope, all right. Other matters to maybe consider?
Quick question, there were some people wondering this last weekend if there's going to be a specific detour route for the school because nobody knows how to access it right now.
There's
no
not
signs specifically to get there.
So we don't typically sign like destinations.
Okay. But that's kind of a huge one coming up.
I think once Main Street goes down, people are gonna intuitively go to First Street East and over to 4th. They kind of just find their way. As soon as we start trying to sign every direction, it creates more
We
confusion.
don't even know what the project will be at that point.
Correct,
So
correct.
can't even really plan ahead on that.
I just just know summer sports start about mid-August, so we're gonna have all the high schoolers trying to find how to get there and where to park.
Their first lesson of the school year.
I mean,
And
I
detours, yeah.
Learned, yeah.
Orientation.
Yeah,
I think-
orientation, yeah.
There we go.
he will be messaging to school leadership.
Okay.
This is where we'll be, you know, this road is closed, this is what you can't use, and then they can put that message out. I mean, everyone lives here, they're familiar with the road network. There undoubtedly will be more traffic on First Street, Fourth Avenue, right? Those people are not used to it, there will be complaints, probably some additional policing necessary, you know, maybe some parking. We did talk with the county about, doing some additional no parking on First Street at the intersection, so trucks and all that can make it through, and buses, and so that way people aren't parked tight to the stop sign. But in general, we try not to sign detours to specific destinations, because it just creates more confusion.
That signage added on Erie was very helpful.
Okay, good.
The no parking.
Good.
Because we had people working on their homes and
Yeah.
there were cars on the street and it really made it hard when you got so much traffic going both ways. So that was really nice to see that come up.
All right, it's past 5:30. Any other urgent matters for the agenda meeting? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Moved by
second.
Counselor Ashley and Amy. All right, supporting, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we stand adjourned for a few minutes.